Hi guys, welcome back to the Wargamer, and I'm here to tell you that painting yellow is easy. Now I'm not talking about that tedious way that involves trying to apply a base coat of Avalon Sunset, but having to apply layer after layer because the colour isn't sitting properly, and then you've applied the paint too thickly and the details are obscured, and then your wash leaves tide marks, and no. I'm here to share with you a technique that I've already used in a number of different videos, and it's a very quick and a very easy way of tackling yellow. Now for this tutorial, you'll need the following things. A tan or beige coloured paint. I've made use of GW's Rakarth Flesh and also the Army Painter's Skeleton Bone. It doesn't matter too much which colour you use, but the lightness or darkness of this paint will affect the overall brightness of the yellow. A light brown ink for shading. Paints such as GW's Seraphim Sepia and the Army Painter's Soft Tone ink are perfect for this. A yellow ink or wash. I found that Games Workshop's Casandora Yellow has the best results, but yellow ink from Vallejo can also be used. A pale yellow paint. I make the most use of Dorn Yellow, but similar paints such as the Army Painter's Arid Earth or Vallejo's Moon Yellow could be used as well. And of course, you'll need a primed miniature to paint. So we need to begin by applying our tan base coat, and I'll be using Rakarth Flesh for this. But before we apply the paint, we need to water it down a little, so mix together your water and your paint in roughly 2 parts paint to 1 part water. Now that we have our paint at the right consistency, we can begin to paint the loincloth on our Carrick Acolyte. As I apply the paint, you can see why I use Rakarth Flesh as the base layer, because it gives us a nice solid colour after only a few thin coats of paint. This is perfect for getting that smooth yellow colour later on. Once our tan base coat is dried, we can now move on to applying some targeted shading using our light brown wash. For this job, I'll be using Seraphim Sepia, and once again I'll be mixing in just a small amount of water to reduce the strength of the wash. I find that 2 parts wash to 1 part water is a good amount. With our wash mixed, we now want to apply a targeted wash into the recesses. To do this, use a thin brush and paint the wash into the crevices and folds of the area you're painting yellow. This is to enhance the overall detail by creating shadows in those recesses. Don't worry about overdoing this pre-shading, as once we apply our yellow wash in the next step, this will be much more subtle. Now we can get to the best part of this technique, applying our yellow wash, and for this step I'll be using Casandora Yellow. But before we do, mixing in a little water will help to achieve that smooth yellow colour. Again, create a mix of 2:1 wash to water for this. So next we want to paint our wash across everywhere that we painted with our tan paint earlier on. When applying your yellow wash, I personally find that the more thin layers you apply, the better. You can control how intense you want the yellow to be, and you'll also get that much smoother final colour than if you'd apply just one heavy layer. Just make sure that you allow your previous layer to dry thoroughly before applying subsequent layers. The final step in painting our yellow is to apply our pale yellow edge highlight, and for this I'll be using Dorn Yellow. First of all, you want to create that 2:1 mix of paint and water respectively, as this will help to control the paint when you're trying to get those thin lines. With our slightly watered down Dorn Yellow, take a small brush with just a small amount of paint on the tip and very lightly drag it along the raised edges of your yellow areas. This should result in a thin pale yellow line along your edges. This will give the impression that more light is reflecting off these raised areas, which will help to enhance the details. And here we have the completed yellow. As you can see, it's a very quick and simple way of tackling yellow, which can be used on a range of different areas on many different miniatures. Now, rather than showing you the results of just one brand of paint, let's see the results of other products. What I have here is a Space Marine which has been primed with the Army Painter's Skeleton Bone, which you can see is different from the Rakarth Flesh we've previously used. I've already pre-shaded the recesses using the Army Painter's Soft Tone ink, and now I'm going to apply some Vallejo Yellow ink over the armour. I've slightly watered it down and will be applying it to the miniature in much the same way as I applied the Casandora Yellow. Here we have our Space Marine who was painted using the Skeleton Bone primer and the Vallejo ink, and to compare it with, I also have this other Space Marine who was painted using the same Skeleton Bone primer, but was washed using Seraphim Sepia and Casandora Yellow instead. For the most part, the two techniques don't look too dissimilar, but there is a slight difference between how these two look. The Vallejo Yellow on the left looks a little less orangey than the GW Yellow on the right, so really, this is entirely down to personal preference. Now if I am to compare our Skeleton Bone and Casandora Yellow Space Marine on the right here to a Rakarth Flesh and Casandora Yellow area on the left, you can see that again there is only a slight difference between how the two look. with the Rakarth Flesh on the left appearing to be ever so slightly more muted in its yellow tone. And so after all that, you should have a better idea on how to tackle yellow in a way that's quick, effective, and also pretty straightforward as well. And also you should have a good idea as to how different manufacturers' brands work together and how you can get different effects by using different combinations of paint. And in fact, I'll be including a full list of all the paints that I've used in this video in the description below. Now this video was a slightly different take on my usual painting tutorial. Instead of focusing on a miniature, I've instead just tackled a individual colour, and I'm really eager to hear what you guys thought of this video. And if you have any suggestions for other techniques or other colours you would like to see me tackle in future videos, then you should leave those in the comments below. Finally, I just want to say a big thank you to my Patreon supporters, you guys who make these videos possible. And if you're interested in supporting these videos as well, you'll find some more information in the description below. And so all that's left to say is thanks for watching, and goodbye. Comment below.